All right, time now for today's Focus Report. Now, Canada's unemployment rate is at its lowest since 2008, with nearly 400,000 jobs created in the last year alone. Well, the French-speaking Quebec has fared pretty well, with a 5.4% unemployment rate, the lowest figure in more than 4 decades. The problem, though, now is recruiting workers. Local companies are trying to attract candidates worldwide, with French speakers of particular interest. Our correspondents sent us this report.
In Saint-Georges, an hour's drive from Quebec City, Mélanie Poulain has a challenge on her hands. Her mission is to attract job seekers to come work at companies in her region.
Ça va bien? Oui, ça va bien toi? Oui. Je suis contente de te rencontrer aujourd'hui. Oui, moi aussi. On va aller discuter puis
First stop, a software development firm. Human Resources Director Karine Poulain needs 8 to 10 programmer analysts each year.
So what kind of schemes have you put in place then to encourage people to come and work for you?
Well, being very visible online and in the media has helped, but even that's not enough. We really need more workers, yet I'm aware that the labor shortage is getting even worse. If 5 people came knocking on my door tomorrow morning, I'd hire them all, but I have nobody right now.
Karine Poulain went to France herself to recruit new staff. Melchior Tetu arrived from Normandy in September.
The setting is great. Whether at work or outside of work, it's different than in France. Coming to Canada was a personal choice that we made, and we don't regret it at all. We're even encouraging our colleagues who are back in France to come here and give it a try.
With 70 employees and double-digit growth, CDID is only one example. There are quite a few others across the country.
Right now, the unemployment rate here in the Beauce region is 2.4%, so that basically means full employment. Our mission then is to reach outside the region and promote the quality of life here. Where we have an advantage is with the cost of living. At the end of the day, workers here have more purchasing power than in any other urban centres in Quebec.
Whether it's software, marketing, or engineering, the companies in Mélanie Poulain's network need to get creative to attract enough employees to meet demand.
Salut Nicolas.
Bonjour.
Ça va bien?
Ben oui, bien sûr.
Oui, je suis venue parler de l'embauche, les dernières embauches que tu as faites en France.
Ben bien, on va aller voir ça.
And when increasing employee benefits isn't enough to snag the best employees, companies like Nicolas Jean's flooring company have to cast their nets even further, as far as 6,000 kilometers away to be exact.
We have many manufacturers here in the region, so we employers are falling over ourselves to try to attract job candidates. To make a difference, our company is trying to stand apart, to be the best employers. In fact, we've won national prizes for best employer, but that's not enough. The unemployment rate is so low that we need to innovate, we need to get off the beaten track. Right now, we're doing a recruitment trip in Colombia. Of course, it's far from Quebec, the climate is different, the culture is different, the language is different, but we've reached the point where we have to find these kinds of solutions to make ends meet.
In Quebec City, where a lack of staff has even forced certain restaurants to close, Mayor Régis Labaume is calling for more flexibility on the part of the federal government.
We can't treat each application from our French cousins who want to immigrate here as if they were aspiring terrorists. We can't do that. What we're saying, especially to the Canadian government, is to quit the paranoia and let those people in, because we need them. We need 74,000 people, not only for new jobs that will be created in the next year, but especially to replace the 50,000 or so people who are retiring.
Bonjour, je vais vous saluer. Laurence Agnoer, je suis la consul générale. Bienvenue au consulat.
New blood for the Quebec labour market may come from a new pilot project, a partnership with Pôle emploi, France's public job search service.
Since November, job offers in Quebec are continuously being posted on France's public job search engine. Offers like this one that just showed up on my screen, a well-known cafe here in Quebec City is looking for a cook.
In all, 30 different sectors and professions qualify for an accelerated visa process.
The idea is to have a list of 30 different types of jobs that are in demand here, but not in France. A number of fields, like the digital economy, have been left out to make sure we don't bring workers to Canada who are needed in France. It's a win-win situation for France and Quebec for those jobs, which are also on the list of jobs favoured by Canada's immigration services.
The consulate says that in 10 years, the number of French citizens living in Quebec City has more than doubled. Juliane Virol took the plunge with her fiancé earlier this year.
We wanted a new challenge and to start our life anew. I also really want to have children, and I think I can give them a better future here than in France right now.
Canada is expected to welcome 1 million immigrants by the year 2020. More than half of those will be skilled workers.
All right, today's Focus report coming to us from our team on the ground in Canada. I'm joined now by Louise Van Winkle. She's head of Francophone promotion for immigration, refugees and citizenship, that at the Embassy of Canada right here in Paris. Welcome to you. We saw in that report there that people are looking, especially in Canada, to recruit French speakers. There are 10 million French speakers estimated in Canada. For French people heading there, they're not likely to feel like a fish out of water.
There are indeed French speakers from all over the world living all over Canada, and that's something that people don't always realize, really from the Atlantic to the Pacific and into the Northern Territories as well.
Because one of the kind of ideas that exists is that people within Quebec are really the ones who are Francophone, but outside of Quebec there are French communities.
I'm from Ontario. I lived in Manitoba. I'm French-Canadian. And so there are really dynamic communities all over the country. And often on the workplace, having French is really an asset. Salaries can be higher. It can really open doors.
And so you have to study French at school in Canada?
Yes, it's part of the curriculum.
OK, look, in terms of the people who are being attracted to go to Canada, studies show that they're under 35 generally. What is it that's attracting young people to work and live in Canada?
I think it's an age where people are more mobile. We also have International Experience Canada. It's a series of agreements with 33 countries that will facilitate mobility for youth up to age 35. But for permanent residents, we're seeing interest also from people who are a little older than that, who are coming with their experience, with their ideas, either to take jobs, to create new companies. So a lot of new projects coming into the country.
One thing I notice of interest is that in order to live in Canada, you don't necessarily have to have a temporary status before applying for permanent status.
That's correct, and I guess it is pretty unusual on the world scale. Some people will choose to start as international students or come with a temporary work permit, but it's not obligatory. We also have very active and proactive permanent resident programs where we're looking at a human capital model. So people who have good skills, who have some work experience, who have language skills and a certain level of either professional training or academic education are well placed to immigrate to Canada. And that goes through a system we call express entry.
What about those who maybe don't have those skills? I mean, is the door closed for them in terms of entering Canada?
The skills are quite broad. It can include some of the construction, fabrication, culinary skills, for instance. And each province, we're not very centralized as a country. We're a federation. And each province can select some of their immigrants. Quebec will select all of its economic immigrants. Others go either through a federal program or selected by a province. And there each province can really determine what their needs are, and that can open up to some of the other skill sets.
I remember many years ago now looking at the application process to immigrate to Canada. I remember it seeming quite complicated. How has that changed? I mean, I'm talking about maybe 7 or 8 years ago. How's that changed since then?
We're with an online system, so it's easy to evaluate whether you're eligible on the basis of the basic criteria in the different categories. We've also systemized certain aspects. There are standardized language tests. There is a process to have foreign credentials evaluated. So things are much more available in terms of information. We try to be accessible as well with in-person information sessions, but many web conferences now. So webinars where people can tune in, get information about immigration, and ask their questions through the chat functions.
And just a final question for you. As head of Head of Francophone promotion, let's say. I mean, what is the main role that you have?
Really informing people that there are opportunities across Canada. People tend to know the big cities, but often it's in the smaller cities or even the rural areas that they will find the quality of life they're looking for, the purchase power, and also the opportunities that they're looking for.
OK, Louise Van Winkle, you're Head of Francophone Promotion for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship at the Canadian Embassy here in Paris. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you.